Hey, everybody, good afternoon. Thank you for joining Happy Hour with Dr. Lisa. Welcome to my podcast. I am your host every Wednesday at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. This podcast is all about my experiences in psychology over the course of 20 plus years now while working with children, specifically children who can see ghosts. These are children that I also call nebulous children. You are going to learn a lot from me, as I always say, about the field of psychology, and that is going to include the good, the bad, and the ugly about my field. I take questions via email at kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. You can reach me by phone. You can call in as I am doing this podcast, and you can also reach me by telephone at area code 765-205-1959. You can also comment on various websites to me. I read all of them, from Spotify to Pandora to Quora. On my actual website, which is LisaLigginsChambers.com, LisaLiggins Chambers, CHAMBERS.com. Today's podcast is all about blog number 4. So if you have not read blog number 4 from my website, I would suggest you do that going forward, because this podcast is going to be, or it is, in relation to my website. So, blog 4 dealt with Dark Angels. Dark Angels was actually a very popular blog. I received a lot of feedback and questions and conversations about that blog, and also blog number 5. So when we talk about Dark Angels today, this is actually part 2 of the conversation that was started last week. Last week, I talked about 2 children that I saw. There was a family of 4 and 2 of the children. So you have to listen to volume 6 of this podcast to get the background for this family. Either way, today I am going to tell you what happened with those 2 children. I think we left off last week with child 1 being hospitalized, and I continued to see child 2. It was interesting because I was pretty devastated that child 1 had to be hospitalized for the second time. And it was necessary, as I said last week, because this was a kid who, had some homicidal thoughts about a parent. And so when there are homicidal thoughts, obviously it's not rocket science. Even if you're not a psychologist, you can conclude that you do need to do something immediate about that. Federal and state law says that when you have a threat to harm, you have to contact the person that is going to be in jeopardy. You also have to contact the police. And so that's actually what was done again. And this child had to be hospitalized. So devastating. But child 2 and I continue to work together, and I continue to see the family. Child 2 gave me a lot of background about what was going on in the house. For example, the mother's ability to see ghosts, and the child 2 could not see ghosts. However, the mother and child 1 could. And one of the things that was dynamic about this was that a lot of the characteristics that child 1 possessed to guard the child 1 and child 2, if that makes sense. So child 1 felt the strong need to guard, child 1's self and also the sibling. So a lot of protective factors came out, and all those things were explained by child 2, who shared later on, along with the mother, that they did have the ability to see ghosts, and in particular what they described as dark angels. So what I also learned was that these dark angels would take the form of some of the characteristics on characters on TV shows, some of the movies that, these kids would watch. The child one would share that sometimes there were certain cartoon characters that these dark angels, I think it's called shift changing. Later on I read about that. That's one thing that they would do. And so if they saw, for example, Freddy Krueger, or I'm trying to think of another. Oh, Jason. Remember Jason from the movie? God, that movie will scare me to this day. These entities within their home would actually change into these characters. So sometimes they would follow child one to school. Sometimes they would follow child one with other activities. And so can you imagine being at school and looking in the corner and seeing a ghost, a dark one, and then this particular ghost is trying to tell you to do bad things at school? I can't imagine that. School is hard enough. So that's what child one was seeing at school. And I can remember when child two mentioned to me that no one believed their family. They were getting help from other places. Other places would turn them down or call them names, if you will, such as being irrational or crazy or unbelievable or delusional or having hallucinations, and these things aren't real. So child two gave me a broad picture of what this family was going through. Now, why was the mother mean? Child two shared with me, and I'll never forget this, that sometimes the mother was mean based upon what the mother could actually see. So when the mother saw a dark angel and this thing would tell the mother to do certain things such as yell, hit, kick, scream, threaten your children, that's exactly what this mother did. Now, this mother did admit that to me. So I thought that was interesting. Now, again, at this time, I was a really young woman. So I must have been 30. I don't think I was any older than about 32 back then. I'm much older now. And again, I was very new at the doctorate level, still training. So all of this was very new to me. And ironically, over the years, that was not the last time that I heard about dark angels. So this blog is very important because I wanted to set you guys up to understand when I heard about dark angels, how I learned about them, what I learned to do with kids in order to treat them. So all of the things that come out in the blogs later on, listening to this podcast and also reading about them on my blog will give you a broader perspective of what dark angels are. So let me just stop right there and give you a visual of dark angels. So, angels are depicted in a lot of literature. You can see them, sometimes on Catholicism is what I think about. Beautiful pictures of angels. I remember there's this really pretty building. I used to work down the street from it in St. Louis, and it had this picture on the wall of these really beautiful angels. Of course, their clothes were white, their wings were white. They glow white. Everything that you truly think of angels, just really beautiful pictures. So I want you to take that and turn it black, completely black. And that's a dark angel, okay? The visions or what this child one would see was not pleasant. The mother told me more than once that she was very glad that I didn't judge them and was very happy that I was there to help them, because no one took these things serious. And even though, her son was hospitalized, there was a part of her that made me believe that she really cared about what was happening. So it's very interesting because the way that this family described these dark angels, it was completely unreal to me back then. You always see angels depicted as being of God and white and heavenly and angelic, right? No pun intended, but angelic. These were out to harm them. And I didn't understand that back then. So when I was in the house once, and I did not write this in the blog, when it was being explained to me about what these things mean, I remember we were standing in the kitchen, and the mother was getting pretty agitated with me because I was asking a lot of questions, and she spoke in a very loud voice anyway, kind of like I told you last week, the little chip, but yelling. And so she became pretty agitated toward me. And I decided to leave. Well, what happened was the son, or the child was a male, had been dismissed from the hospital. And I was to start seeing this child at school. Prior to that, keep up with me here, the mother was agitated with me. And when she was agitated, she started seeing a dark angel in the kitchen who was telling her not to like me. And so she was being manipulated. Does that make sense? And what happened was, when this kid arrived, I think it was about 10 days, my sessions could no longer be at the house because the mother was becoming increasingly agitated toward me. However, the mother was okay with me seeing child 1 at school. When child 1 was at school, the school, this was city of St. Louis. Obviously, I can't name the school. Chicago. Where am I? Chicago. It was in Chicago, and I can't name the school, but I do remember the name. And I'll have to tell you, the school staff was wonderful toward me. They really wanted child 1 to receive the help needed to be able to return to baseline to perform well in school. This was an older student. So, in thinking back, they wanted this kid to end up graduating from high school. So they allowed me to visit with this child at school during the day, twice a week. We didn't get that far. I went to see child 1 right when the release from the hospital happened, and back to school occurred, and we were in this office. And typically, as far as safety goes, I am a female. One of the things that I teach my own students is that you always have to protect yourself. Okay. With some clients, you will feel as if you don't have to protect yourself. With this one, I didn't think that I needed that. This kid was fine with me. I didn't feel any fear. Despite everything that happened, I didn't feel any fear. And typically, I don't show any fear anyway when I'm working with my clients. So I was sitting, if you can picture a classroom in a square, I was sitting on the furthest wall in the back of me. So where you are sitting now, just think about the furthest wall behind you. And this kid was sitting closer to the door, but we were close enough to where we can hear each other. And I was really happy to see this child. This child was happy to see me. And so we reconnected, discussed, how things were in the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll never forget a couple of things that this kid said to me. One, I don't need medication. Okay. When clients tell you that they don't want to take medication, There's not a whole lot you can do. You can try, you can, use some of the techniques that in order to allow them to understand why medication management is very important. But at the end of the day, it's up to your clients to maintain that regimen. And when they don't do that, there's not a lot you can do about it. Okay. You want to try to work around that, keep, them in therapy or whatever you're doing with them, but you don't necessarily, you know, it's just not a lot you can do. And so the reason that this child maintained the lack of interest in medication management was because this child perceived himself as not needing the medication. And why would you think that he felt as if he didn't need the medication? If you said it, it's because if you are seeing ghosts, but you feel sane, you don't feel like you need medication. And that's where this kid was coming from. And I remember that this kid kept telling me, I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. A lot of people equate medication to being crazy. That's a myth that we will deal with in later podcasts. However, for this podcast, that's what the kid said to me. And so in telling me that, this kid also talked about, I see ghosts, I see dark angels. Well, they look like dark angels. I see other ghosts. I'm just not crazy. I'm in school. I'm functioning fine. When I don't see them or when they're not around me, I don't feel as if I need to do bad things like, hurting my mother. And so this kid was trying to describe to me that mental illness was not the catalyst for what was happening. I didn't understand it at the time, but there was a shift in this kid's mind from mental illness to, hey, I see ghosts. And I want you to understand that that's what I do. I see ghosts. I am not crazy. So when you get a kid like that, what do you do? You believe them, and you have to believe them because he was starting to get worked up. Okay. So what did I tell him? I said, I believe you. I believe you. Said, my mother can do this. I can do this. No one believes me. And I said, I believe you. And the bell rang, and you know what he said to me? He said a sentence to me that I will never forget for the rest of my life. He said, you are the only one who believes me. And he walked out the door. He dropped the mic on me because I looked at him and I said to him, one day I will tell your story. And he said, good, people need to know. I never saw the family again, and I'll explain to you the reason that I did not see the family. I did not see the family again because your safety, my safety, if you are in this field, is a priority. When it comes down to safety, if you are experiencing any threats of harm from your clients, you absolutely do not have to see them. My agency at the time felt as if it was best for me not to see this family because there is a twist in the story. Now, I want you to understand that I have to be a little guarded here when I talk about this twist, even though it was many moons ago. These children, these two are now grown, okay? And so this was their life. And so I still have a duty to protect them. So I'm not going to say, give you I'm not going to be as detailed, but you'll understand it. I never saw this family again. The agency that I worked for pulled them from the agency, period. They were not allowed any longer to deal with our agency. That was a decision that the training psychologist that monitored me made along with the powers that be, because this mother started to threaten me. Okay. What did I learn from all of that? A lot of things, but I'll start with what I learned when it comes to clients threatening me. One, I don't have to deal with it, period. Two, be clear about your boundaries. the mother believed that I was her therapist, and that's where the problem came. Now, I'll just defend myself for a minute. I remember that where I worked was a child agency. Yes, we work with families, but we work with them along with the children. So the children were actually our primary targets at this agency. Um, I'm much better at it now, but when I start with the family, it is very clear who I'm working with in the family, why I'm working with them, and our goals, our objectives, and what we are going to work on and with who. This was a type of family that I dealt with. And I talked about that, last week. However, it was very clear that I was working with these two children. And sometimes the parents have their own challenges with mental illness. And that's kind of what happened here. And so because there were threats due to that mother's mental health toward me, we had to let the family go. What I learned the most is that you have to believe your clients. I actually watch on one website, I watch how some therapists respond to people who ask questions. And I saw a therapist this morning. Now, people can say that they're anybody online, but I like to believe that some people are really telling the truth about who they are. And it was a therapist this morning who was so insensitive to this person and told them, there is no way you see ghosts. There's something wrong with you. You are hallucinating or you are delusional, and you need to go call a therapist and go to counseling. And then you probably need to be on medication, because hallucinations can be indicative of psychotic disorder. I mean, just going on and on and on. And I wanted to pull my hair out because it's insensitive, and you want to believe your clients at face value, and you don't want to shut out their feelings. And that's how these children felt, as if people that have dealt with them in the past shut them out. And so it gave them an initial trust issue when they worked with people in the field. Now, they felt comfortable with me, and I was the one uncomfortable throughout it all, because these were new things that were being told to me. I also learned more about dark angels. After that, I've been hearing about these dark angels for every child that I'm talking about on the blog. Oh my gosh, the majority of them have described dark angels. Now, when you have all of these kids in different places, in different cities, different backgrounds, different parents, different schools, but they're all talking about these dark angels. Kids call them dark angels, especially little kids. Older kids can describe them a little bit better. Well, I had to start researching dark angels. So let's just talk about it. Other than what they look like, well, what have I heard about them? A lot. From kids. Oh man, I can create a laundry list about the things that I've been taught about dark angels. I mean, kids have pointed them out to me. Obviously, I can't see them. I think I wrote about this in one of my blogs. I don't remember which one. However, I was walking down the steps with a little kid once, and this little kid got really excited. We had this really big picture window at one of my jobs going down the steps. And it was so big and pretty, kind of like the window I'm looking out of now. And this little kid said, "Stop right there, right there, right there." And I said, "What?" Because I can't see. And this little kid said, there's a dark angel on that building. And I said, "Really? What does it look like?" And this is what I mean by believing your clients. I said, "Really? What does it look like?" And this little kid said, it's got his wings spread. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, this kid's not lying. This is the same information that I gained from other children. It's got its wings spread and it's standing on top of the building and it's looking at us. And it doesn't like you. It has a mean face. It just does not like you, Dr. Lisa. But it's right there. I mean, different things like that would happen to me, and I would always ask them to elaborate, tell me more. It's mean. I had children tell me there was something dark on the bus following me. I've had kids telling me that they would go to school and these dark things, dark angels, when I say dark things, would lift up their pencils. They don't always look like angels. Remember, I said they can shift, change, and all that. Some of the kids, they look like people. Sometimes they look like really dark shadows. Sometimes they have smoke around them. I have been told that the dark angels can look like little kids. That was very popular, that sometimes they would look like they're little kids, which would make sense if they're going to manipulate kids, right? They're going to try to get at a kid's level and look like kids. And so that's not even a fraction of what I've heard from these kids about dark angels. Let me think of another one. I know a kid, I think I may have mentioned this before. One had a top hat on. And actually, I have some people that I'm going to ask about that, because I kept hearing about this man with a top hat, and he had on a black suit, and he had one of those, oh God, what were those old watches back in the day? I think they were just stop watches where it had the big face and the chain attached to the hip. And it would walk up and down the hallway of the homes of some of these children. I mean, I've heard it all from these kids about dark angels. What is the behavior of the dark angels? Because I asked these kids, I asked child 1, child 2 couldn't see, but I asked child 2, different stories that I know came from these kids. I started to kind of look up this stuff. I don't feed into the dark, if you will, at all, but I will tell stories about them because I have a lot of them and I needed to understand it. So I started reading about them. I started to understand that anything dark is no good. Anything dark will harm us. That's me too. Anything dark will harm these kids. Anything dark can be manipulative. I thought of another one, and actually I need to write it up on my blog. I need to write it down. The forest. There was a kid who saw dark angels in the trees. And that actually, now that I think about it, I was actually told that more than once. I have a specific story about that, and I'm going to write it in the blog instead of talking about it on the podcast. And then we'll talk about it when the blog comes out. So I've heard this repeatedly. Now, what are they exactly? Well, they're not angels of God. I hate to disappoint some of you. I'm seeing some of you comment and talk heavily about demonic activity. And that's what dark angels are, folks. Demons. Okay. Whew. Next week, I'm going to share with you that I'm actually going to talk about this in more detail about dark angels or demonic activity. There are a lot of questions coming to me about that. Now, how did I handle this over the years after I started researching about it? Because listen, dark angels and demonic activity can get really heavy and scary, and it can get really heavy and scary very quickly because you are fighting for these kids, you are helping these kids, and you have got to understand what you're dealing with. And if you are not well versed in this, then don't touch it. Give it to someone who is. What I've learned over time is that these demons can influence you as well. They are mean. They're mean to children. They are scary to these kids. So I want you to visualize this, okay? Some of you actually can see spirits, so you know what I'm talking about. Some of you can see ghosts. Some of you know that they are dark, and you also know God's angels. I am strictly talking right now about visualizing. Imagine the veil being lifted from you if you can't see ghosts like I can't. And imagine these kids just looking out the window and seeing a lot of dark stuff. That would scare me. That would scare a lot of people who are not used to it. So let me tell you, there's some of you who have said, I would really love to have that gift. I would really appreciate being able to see ghosts. Every last kid, and when I say every, I mean it. That's not an exaggeration. Every kid who could do this, every parent that I worked with, because initially I thought it was cool too. I was like, well, shoot, I want to see God's angels. There are people who say God isn't real. There are people who say God is real. There are people who are religious. There are people who are not religious. Show me, Lord, that I want to see, because I want to see for myself if angels are real, if God is real, if dark angels are real, or if demonic activity is real, because I want to tell an audience that this stuff is real. And every last kid that I worked with, every last parent said, absolutely not. This is not a gift that you want. And you know me, I'm like, why? It seems pretty cool. When I was younger, mind you. and you know what they said? They said, because it's scary. Imagine waking up in the morning and there's some doggone spirit right next to your bed. I had kids who said they would get up at night and look around the room, and there would be a ghost of a woman at the edge of their bed, which I have not talked about on my blog yet. And so some of us have issues like me sleeping with the closet open now. It's because I heard too many stories, so imagine waking up in the middle of the night and you sit up in your bed and there is the ghost of a woman right in front of your bed. Well, they can see that, but you can't. You get up to the bathroom just like me and you don't see a darn thing. From their perspective, they do not want anyone to have this ability. They said it's too scary. You don't need it. I mean, they would shy me away from it. Mind you, let me give you a disclaimer too. A lot of these conversations would happen after therapy. So after, I've sat and listened to these kids. I've sat and listened to these parents. We've done treatment. We've done everything that we needed to for 50 minutes to an hour. And then some of them would stay longer. I never did rush my clients. I've never done that. If they wanted to stay 70 minutes, that was fine with me. If they wanted to stay, 90 minutes, that was fine with me. For me, that was a way that I would get to know them. And so when everything was done, sometimes we would walk outside and just talk. And that's when sometimes these kids could see things on the grounds where I was working, or in the hallways, or in the staircases, or when we would get off the elevator. Oh, there's a little spirit boy. Oh my God, there's a little spirit boy. And I'd be like, where? And they're like, right there, standing next to you. And I'm like, crap, I can't see. So I'm like, get away from me. The other thing that came out of this is that I had to learn how to be a warrior when it came down to treating these kids via God. I had to. It doesn't matter if you believe in God or not yourself right now on this day. If you are atheist, that's okay too. It doesn't matter. When I treated these kids, in order to make them feel better, I had to become stronger in God, because you know how I learned to get rid of these demons, these dark angels from kids? I had to teach them how to pray. I got silent for a minute because I wanted you to process that for a minute. I had to teach these kids how to pray. When you're dealing with dark angels, you have to be the type of person who's flexible in thinking. So I learned how to pray. And let me tell you, I used to test it out on these kids too. So for example, I wrote about this on one of my blogs. There was one kid who I was getting ready to do a therapy session treatment. And I want you to read the blog, so I won't give it away, but there were a lot of little kid demons in the room. And this kid was just as happy sitting with them. And I did not appreciate that because remember, they influence sometimes what these kids do. So I asked this kid's parent and then this kid, how do you want to deal with it? And when they, tell me they don't want them there, and I would show them, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you what I do if I want to take control of anything dark. And then if this happens in your home, I want you to do the same thing. Now, you can see ghosts and I can't. So I want you to watch them disappear. And I'm going to ask God to send his angels in here. And I want you to tell me if God's angels are in here, because I can't see them. And you know what happened? Oh my gosh. I said, are they all gone? And this kid was like, yeah. And the mother said, yeah, because the mother could see ghosts too. And I said, I didn't have to say a word. I was getting ready to tell you, I said, but I'm going to pause. I didn't say anything. This kid, I wish you could see my face. This kid's face, the mouth went open, the eyes went around the room, the head started turning, and I'm smiling because I had been through this before. So I knew what was happening. So I said, this is when I said something. I said, well, what do you see? And this kid said, oh my God. And the mother's looking around like, you called God's angels in here. I'm like, yeah, I did. I've had experiences with dark angels and demons, and they don't make me comfortable because they aren't very nice to my kids that I work with. And so I said, so what's happening? Because I can't see. And they're like, God's angels aren't here. Now, when people tell you that, it's really important for you to test what's in the room. And I learned that from a pastor. So just because these individuals told me, oh my God, God's angels, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, I told you I kept a Bible in here. I'm going to pull this Bible out. I want you to tell me. I said, if you are of God and you are God's angels, I want you to touch this Bible. And I said, what are they doing? And they're like, well, they're touching the Bible. And they're laughing because you're testing them. I said, you got that right. I don't need demons in here with me or with you. So even if at the time, so I never disclose my religion. I still don't do that. And I don't do that with my clients. One can conclude my religion, but until I tell you, don't make assumptions. But I'll tell you at the time, that's what I learned to do. And it worked. It worked. It cleared the room. This kid and parents said the room wasn't heavy. It was bright. It was airy. The angel was behind me. There's an angel in the tree. That angel in the tree was something else too. And all the kids saw that angel in the tree and the one that's supposed to be guarding me right behind me. There's one who stays on my back, they said. And I don't know if that's the same for everyone, but all of the kids that I work with could see that one behind me. It's a female, and one in a tree who's a male. And I have stories about that too that are going to be in the blog. Excuse me. So anyway, the angels came into the room, and the kid felt calm and all the dark angels were gone. So that's an example of how they come to children. They don't always come scary. So, excuse me, over time they get scary to kids, and sometimes they initially are, but a lot of times they don't, because they want to make kids feel safe. They want to make them feel as if they can talk to these kids. And these kids do talk to them. When they come in losing my voice, I'm sorry. When they come in a form like that, it makes the kids feel as if, yes, it's okay to talk to them, and it's okay to talk to them because why? Because they look like me. So they're little kids. So yay, these little demons are around and we're going to talk. Over time, however, they become more demanding on these kids. They become a lot more evil toward these kids. And I'm not saying this just to say it. I'm saying this to you because this is what I've learned from the kids and the parents who can see goes. Over time, they become manipulative. Over time, they come in between relationships. Over time, they cause a lot of these kids to have true symptoms of mental illness. So, sadness, that's layman's terms. In my terms, it's major depression. They cause anxiety and confusion. In my terms, typically my kids would end up, at some point, somebody told them they had generalized anxiety disorder. In my career, I've never diagnosed a kid with bipolar, never diagnosed as kids with schizophrenia, because we don't typically do that. Can it be done? Yes, we don't typically do that. And there are other conditions, that we can use as opposed to schizophrenia if we just, if they meet the criterion. So these dark entities cause these type of things. They cause these kids to make bad decisions. They're very evil. So if you hear about a kid saying, oh, I've seen a demon, or I play with a Ouija board, you want to work with that. You don't want to push them away. You want to work with that and understand it. And then if you're brave enough, you teach them how to rid themselves of it. I've had to do that multiple times over the years, multiple times, because these kids are young and they don't understand. One of the things that I want to leave you with today is talking about Ouija boards, since we are talking about dark angels. I'm going to get into detail at some point about Ouija boards. However, let's touch upon it now. Kids are going to talk about Ouija boards. I'm on a website and they are constantly asking about Ouija boards. Guys, Ouija boards are no good. Kids that can see ghosts, or what I call nebulous children, told me time and time again to say no to Ouija boards. What happens is you don't know, or kids don't know what they're talking to. They think it's fun. They think it's exciting. I'm going to get this Ouija board and, people are going to talk to me and tell me my future and who's in the room. I'm looking for my grandma. She passed away. You don't know what's giving you the information. You don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what type of spirit is in the room with you. If you tap into a world that you're unaware of, or a space that you're unaware of, it can hurt you. And we'll talk about Ouija boards more, but I want to share something. I was talking to a friend of mine about this. It's pretty interesting. A lot of you have, one day I was watching Ghost Stories, the show. Have you guys heard of Ghost Stories? And Marilyn Manson was on there once. And it was pretty cool because Marilyn Manson talked about when he was a child playing with a Ouija board. If you get bored and want to look this up, do so. What was the name of that show? I think it was Ghost Stories, Celebrity Ghost Stories. Look it up. I was stunned when I saw Marilyn Manson on this show. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it recently, because what he described happened with that Ouija board is talking to dark angels. And I'll never forget a quote that he said. I never wrote it down, but I never forgot it. When it comes to Ouija boards, understand something that he said in that show. And it was, sometimes you open the door to things that you never get rid of. Don't open the door to what you can't see, what you don't know about, and what you don't know how to get rid of. And that's what happened to him. That was a good quote, wasn't it? I never forgot it. Again, it was, don't open the door. Sometimes you open the door to things that you never get rid of. And I always remembered that. And I've told children that, because when you work with Ouija board or you play with Ouija boards, and this is what I would tell the kids, even the ones that would see ghosts, the ones that would see ghosts didn't really report, as far as I can remember, playing with Ouija boards, because they could see everything and they would talk to it. And some of these things were telling them what was going to happen in their future lives. Kids that can't do this are the ones that are playing with Ouija boards. Discourage your kids from playing with them. I know some horror stories about kids playing with Ouija boards. Okay. And so it does open up the door to demons. And again, demons are not their friends. So I can't stress that enough. Next week, I'm going to answer some questions about Ouija boards that I'm getting online. We're also going to talk a little bit more about demons and dark angels, and I am going to conclude that about demons. I don't like to talk about demons too much and give it too much airtime. I don't like to feed into that. There's a lot more to talk about. I have a whole host of stories about kids that I've worked with who can see ghosts, spirits, entities, aborigines, angels, everything I can't see, I've learned through these kids. So it has been such a pleasure talking to you all about Blog 4 today. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you call me. Everybody can call me, 765-205-1959. You can send questions to me on the air through Podbean. You can also email me at kidscanseeghosts@gmail.com. I am also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere. These podcasts are also being aired on several different podcast websites, such as iTunes and also Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. So you can hear these through those different spaces as well. So if you have any questions, again, contact me. If you have any advice for me, let me know. Until next week, you guys have a good up and coming weekend. Bye-bye.